If you look at love and kindness as a way of treating people as individuals and making connections with the employees you lead, that's the kind of love and kindness I'm talking about. It's human kindness. It's connection with individuals and the unique talents that they bring. I have another chapter in the book where I talk about, life isn't fair. And I talk very strongly about not treating employees fairly. I was pushed at a very young age as a senior leader to, not take on too many people and make sure that whatever you do, you try to treat them fairly. And I thought that was a disservice to those people that I led. I felt that I unapologetically don't want to treat people fairly. I want to treat them as unique individuals.
Hey everyone, it's Amy Lynn Durham, and you're listening to Create Magic at Work. Create Magic at Work is on a mission to equip senior leaders with tools they need to be a true quantum leader and actually understand what that means. Improve employee engagement, retain top talent, and transform your workplace culture to have less drama and stress. So let's start making magic. This episode on Create Magic at Work is a special one for everyone. Traycee Mayer is going to be the guest, and she's an expert in helping leaders leverage the strengths of human connection to achieve explosive success in their own careers and with those they lead. She unapologetically believes people don't need to be treated fairly, but that they need to be treated as the unique individuals they are in order to thrive and succeed. She has led teams of hundreds and helped to create paths for dozens of great leaders. Traycee can help you drive accountability, productivity, and positive financial results while guiding you in leadership presence, growth mindset, and new tools to help you attract and retain individuals with exceptional talent. That is why I asked her to be a guest on the Create Magic at Work podcast. She has experienced great triumphs as an entrepreneur, executive coach, leadership trainer, and as an author of her soon-to-be released book, The Leadership Contradiction, which I had the honor and privilege of writing the foreword for her book. This podcast episode is being released at a special time where Traycee's book is coming out into the world, titled The Leadership Contradiction. And she stands by choosing a path of love and kindness in leadership. I encourage you to listen to this inspiring interview with Traycee. I can't help but leave every conversation I have with Traycee feeling like I want to do a little bit better in the world than I have before. And after reading her book, I closed it and just felt so inspired to do something for someone else, to leave my office as I operate through my errands and just spread kindness in some small way. It was truly an inspiration. I encourage you to get a copy of The Leadership Contradiction. The link is in the show notes, and it's also available on Amazon. And pull up a seat, pull up a cup of coffee, and take a listen to this wonderful message and conversation with Traycee Mayer. Traycee, welcome to Create Magic at Work. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the listeners other than the bio I just went over?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Amy. I'm so excited about this. And I was thinking just a little earlier about the fact that a year ago, I never in my wildest dreams thought I would write a book and about my journey the last 40 plus years. And it's just been an incredible blessing to have received this book and been able to put it out to the world.
Yeah, well, I am very appreciative that this book is out into the world because it really aligns with, of course, everything that Create Magic at Work is about, which is bringing heart and human connection to the workplace and advocating for healthy leaders and healthy workplaces. So thank you for having the courage to put this out, because I would imagine, and I'm not just imagining, there are a lot of books that are written that have not been put out for everyone to read. So thank you for having the courage to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So your book, that's what we're here to talk about today. The book is titled The Leadership Contradiction. And I wanted you to come on the podcast to share with all of the listeners what inspired you to write the book. And more than that, when I hear the title, The Leadership Contradiction, the first thing I think of is, wow, somebody's calling this out. Somebody is saying, hey, something's not right here. We're supposed to be inspiring people. We're supposed to be helping people along their growth journey. And yet we run into a contradiction when we're doing that. So why don't you start off sharing what inspired you to write the Leadership Contradiction?
Wonderful. Thank you. That's a great question, Amy. What inspired me to write the Leadership Contradiction, Choosing a Path of Love and Kindness, was about 3 years ago when I was on a hike in this canyon near my home. And it was during a time where we were dealing with this pandemic. And a lot of people were kind of on their own, a lot of solo time. And that was my way of kind of processing the day and getting some fresh air and getting exercise and such. And on this particular day, I was walking down the path like I would any other day. And suddenly something just almost, I felt this physical hand almost stop me and caused me to really think. And I looked backwards behind me. There was nobody there. I looked forward. There was no one there. But I had this amazing feeling that I needed to record my thoughts. So I did that on my cell phone for the time that I had reception down in the canyon. And it really caused me to reflect on my journey, both in leadership and also in life for the past 40-something years. And it was quite profound to me. And I never thought that it would be anything other than me reflecting on my own life and seeing that even though I thought all of the decisions that I would have made in my life probably were made in my 20s or 30s or what have you. And I was very amazed that I had so much ahead of me that I needed to make decisions on. And so I reflected in the book about the choices we have throughout our life, and they are never ending. And I equated those to the different paths you get to choose when you're hiking or driving or what have you. But to me, it was during this hike where I also mountain bike and, looking at the different ways that we could go, some that are dangerous and others that are not, some that are dark, some that are light, so on and so forth. And you'll read more about that in the book.
Yeah, I think what struck me the most when I read your book was the colorful way that you described these different paths that we take. And also, because you're a leadership coach, the way that you really called on everyone to take responsibility for the decisions that they make on the paths that they went down, and also to be kind to themselves for the choices that they made. In fact, I'm jumping way ahead, but I want to go to this. One thing that really struck me was letting go of regret that you touch on in the book and accepting your choices. Can you elaborate on that? Because I think a lot of us may be holding on to some regret for a decision we've made, maybe in our career path or in our life. And if you could offer just some leadership insight on what inspired you to help people let go of regret, tip, something. If somebody's listening right now and they're living in some sort of regret for a decision they've made, beating themselves up, what would you say to them?
Well, I love that question as well. So I've dealt with a lot of regret in my life and in my leadership journey. And the reflection on this particular day of hiking caused me to really look at, again, the dark and the light sides of leadership and realize that I didn't always do it right either. There were times that I needed to be vulnerable and I needed to make some changes in my life. And I talk about that quite a bit in the book, and very honestly and openly, things that people I've known for 30 or 40 years probably don't know about me. But I felt like if this was going to be an important message to deliver to anyone else walking a similar path, which so many of us do as leaders, not just in the workplace, but even in your family or at home. But I would say that I have come to terms with all of those regrets that I carried with me, some for a year, others for 10 or 20 years, and realized that my path has been perfect and it has made me who I am today. The key caveat to that is that I've done some learning and some growing through those obstacles and challenges. And I believe that's a key way to let go of those regrets, is not just sit in them and think about how you did something that you feel wasn't the right decision or choice to make for you or anybody else at the time, but going back and saying, what did I learn here? What kind of things can I be better at because I had this experience? Because I truly believe that we all have this path and none of them are perfect. If anybody has a perfect path, I'd like to speak to them.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that exists. But again, if we don't grow from them, then yeah, that's not a good path for us, because it's really about not just taking those slippery slopes and those rocky paths and the ones that are dark and scary, but it's what can we learn from that so that we can improve our lives and the lives of people that we lead.
Yeah, I think that's one of the common, I don't know if I would call it a pitfall, but it's one of the common things that I've done before. I see people do. We choose a path. Maybe we're at a crossroads in our life. We choose a path. We're going down it. There starts to be maybe some twisty turns, maybe an obstruction in the path. And then we're still thinking about that other path that we could have chosen. Well, what would have happened if I went down that way? Would I have ran into this obstruction? Would I have had to make this sharp turn? And then it rips us from the present moment and from experiencing our journey on that current path. And so letting go of regret and accepting the decision, living in full acceptance of the decision that you made, that's big. That's a big skill, and it's pretty powerful. Is there a micro step we can do to start to slowly live in acceptance? Maybe if let's say we're right there at that sharp turn, or we're right there at that obstruction, we're wanting to maybe move around down the path, speaking metaphorically, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and we're like, gosh, that other path the sun was shining and there were flowers. What gives? Should I have taken that other one? And then we're all robbed of the space we're in. What's one maybe micro thing we could do for acceptance?
That's so profound, because that is what I found was this pivotal point in having this hike, that there was a message that I was supposed to share with others. And you don't learn if you're spending the time regretting and looking back. And I believe that at the moment you have a choice, you can take a few moments, or you could take a few days, or whatever the time frame you have. Sometimes you don't have the luxury of time, right? You have to use your intuition and make a decision. And I have this little anecdote I use with friends and people that I coach, push enter, as though they were on their laptop, push enter and move on. It's like once you've sent the email, it's gone, right? It's kind of like that same thing. So obviously making some of the choices we make in our lives are way bigger than sending the email. But I get a lot of laughter out of that, and a lot of, wow, that totally makes sense. So I also say a lot of to the people I coach, move on, just move on, because exactly what you said, Amy, is true. We lose the opportunity to learn the lesson. We lose the opportunity to enjoy the journey. We lose the opportunity to impact others by accepting the choices we've made and using whatever example, be it good or bad, to move forward. I've made some bad choices in my life, but by allowing myself time to grow and reflect, I've put a few things in this book that are very vulnerable lessons for me that I never thought in, 20 years I'd be sharing. And here I am, because I know that it's part of my story. And today I can embrace that. So yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, that micro step would be just trust your instinct, push enter, and move on. Because there's going to be something for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And sometimes the mistakes,
No, go for it. Yeah.
Sometimes the mistakes actually give you the biggest lesson. They give you the most extraordinary growth than you can ever imagine.
Yeah, that's quantum leadership also. The innovation comes from the mistakes and the chaos. And so rather than thinking of the path you could have, should have, would have maybe chosen, you pause and try to recognize the gifts in the moment, the learning, the growth, where, oh my gosh, this is where innovation comes from. This is where the magic happens. Now help me see it. Where do I see it? So now your focus is back on your own path, right? I love that. The other thing that I want to talk about, if you're comfortable with it, it's in your book, so I'm assuming you're comfortable with it, is this contradiction, the leadership contradiction that we have all lived if we've been in a corporate leader in the space.
Right.
And one of them that you touch on is how do I say this? The use of alcohol, but in a way that it's viewed as kind of like you get like an upper echelon kind of way in the corporate space. And to me, again, that's another leadership contradiction, right? You get a little bit more ahead if you stay at the cocktail party and have a couple of drinks with maybe the person that makes decisions about your career trajectory or you stay out all night with some colleagues and you don't get good enough sleep. I'm guilty of it, right? And you show up to the morning meeting, but yet you're talking about employee well-being and decreasing burnout. There's a contradiction, right? So I'd love for you to touch on why you courageously decided to place that in your book and call it out.
Yeah, there are a lot of contradictions in leadership. And the more time I spent, which was 9 or 10 months writing this book and speaking it to myself, in other words, recording it for myself, I was just stunned at how many contradictions there actually are. I think another word that I use for some of the things that we assume are good leadership traits are, it's kind of like a group illusion. You know, some of us who grew up, particularly, and not only women, but particularly women, 40 years ago in a key leadership role, we really needed to join the cocktail parties in order to be at the table with the other executives. There was a lot fewer women who were in key leadership roles. And so, yeah, the contradiction that I call out today is that that's not part of being a great leader. As how much can you drink? Can you drink a double scotch at lunch? And I do talk about that in the book. But that the talent of being a true leader is being able to give back to others in a healthy way and guide them in a positive, meaningful way. The behaviors that we are meant to believe that are positive leadership traits are things that actually can be damaging to ourselves and to the people that we lead. And I think that's true for alcohol too. And also just a little further into the leadership contradiction, I believe that there's a really strong dark and light side of leadership. So there's so many paths that are that darker path. And anybody listening to this call could probably write down a list of many in their lives that they've experienced. And what happens when a leader is operating in that darker side, they lose connection with their employees or the people that they lead. And that, to me, that lack of connectedness is where I think the leader disqualifies themselves because they can't connect to the employee, and the employee starts to pull away and become not trusting of that leader. And then that person just becomes a boss, or a manager, or whatever words. I don't mean any to become derogatory, just that I'm really looking at leadership from that true word definition of guiding others. Yeah.
And that's where I think it gets muddied, or is you're in this role and then you lose sight of what impact really is. Is impact, what do I want my impact to look like? Do I want it to look like dollars on a spreadsheet? Or do I want it to be this energetic ripple effect that rolls through not only my team, but their families, communities, planet, humanity? Where do I want to go with this? And what are these choices that I'm going to make? And that takes some consciousness and some awareness to really stay in that space of decision making. complexity of thought and decision making. Spiritual intelligence is one of the skills, as you know. So on that note, the theme throughout your book, which is also another really courageous moment, is offering that leaders can be successful through love and kindness, right? So let's say, somebody's listening to us talk right now, like, what are they talking about? I have numbers to hit. I have a quota. People got to get moving. We're on a deadline. We don't have time for this love and kindness stuff. What would you say to someone listening that's maybe going down that road or that path?
Well, I'm sure there'll be thousands. And I love that question. And the reason I love it is because I realized on that unique hike I took 3 years ago that a big part of what I was receiving from myself at that time was, gosh, all of those decisions I made to be kind, to connect with my employees, not only had this energetic, positive ripple effect on them and their value as human beings, but I had tremendous financial success in the businesses that I ran. Large hotels, multiple hotels, very large venues in California, other types of business in retail, hospitality, facility management, and always exceeded expectations, exceeded budgets. And today I have the pleasure of still maintaining fantastic relationships, which now turned into friendships of employees that I managed 20, 30 plus years ago. And they, in turn, are developing other kind and caring and loving leaders that realized that was the key. So those that I was able to touch, and it was just, we ended up in the same place at the same time. Sometimes I hired them. A lot of times I hired them, but often I took over a business where they were already were working. And, but I can see the impact that I made on them. And it's so wonderful to see that they recognize the financial contributions we made to the companies that we managed together, that they now lead in that same way. So I would say strongly that if you look at love and kindness as a way of treating people as individuals and making connections with the employees you lead, that's the kind of love and kindness I'm talking about. It's human kindness. It's connection with individuals and the unique talents that they bring. I have another chapter in the book where I talk about life isn't fair. And I talk very strongly about not treating employees fairly. I was pushed at a very young age as a senior leader to, not take on too many people and make sure that whatever you do, you try to treat them fairly. And I thought that was a disservice to those people that I led. I felt that I unapologetically don't want to treat people fairly. I want to treat them as unique individuals and be able to look into each of their eyes and know that they're a different person than the next. They may have some common qualities. They may, match a job description that you're hiring for. But at the end of the day, every human on this planet is unique. And we just get the privilege of leading a handful. For me, it was 200 to 400 employees at a time. But every one of them was unique. And I could never lose sight of that. And that's a key takeaway that I share with people I coach today.
Yeah. You have me thinking, because I'm in this path mindset with your book, and you have me thinking, yeah, it's the path we choose as a leader, because you can get results going down a path of not love and not kindness. You can get results. The question is, at what cost? What cost? What cost? What energetic cost? What cost on legacy? What cost on the effects of the people that are on your team that aren't receiving that loving and kind energy from their leader? And one of the most satisfying things is what you just described, when you're a leader stepping into a role after someone has chosen to lead at a large cost. Maybe they're not viewing people or seeing the humanity within them, or pinpointing their unique skills and then really amplifying them in an amazing way to achieve goals. isn't that the best when you stepped into that team and you're like, oh, I'm going to lead with love and kindness and we're going to get the most amazing results. It's a win-win. I have the audacity to do it. Isn't that so fun when the team responds to you in that way because they've worked for someone that might not have been operating in that space?
Oh my gosh, it is wonderful. And I truly didn't think a lot about it until, again, a few years ago. I just acted authentically in the way that I felt I wanted to be around the people I spent 50, 60 hours a week with. You know, everyone knows that, generally speaking, we've all, through the climbing the corporate ladder, spend more time with our employees than we have with our families. And it was just a decision I made to be myself. I can name it today, and I could purposefully approach leadership in that way. But years ago, it was just how I was. I enjoyed meeting the employees that worked with me as much as they needed to be led by a leader who was kind and caring. But let's make no mistake about it, that there's also something I talk about in my book about the iron fist with a velvet glove. And that was actually how one of the executive vice presidents of a worldwide company described me when I worked for them. She said, Tracee, you are that. And so I explained that a little bit more in the book, that I took that kind of as a badge of honor then. But the iron fist is not what you might think it is. What the iron fist is for me in leadership is making sure I'm meeting the bottom line. It's making sure that I have weekly meetings with my senior leaders. I know there's a whole bunch of people that will be able to tell you that if they arrived 5 minutes late for the meeting, they probably didn't get into the boardroom because I just thought that was not acceptable. You know, I would ask for agenda items ahead of time. You know, I was a bit of a stickler on stuff like that, you know, and if you didn't meet your department, bottom line budget, needed to explain to me how, why that didn't happen and what we were doing to correct it immediately for the following month. So there was always these, requirements that I had to meet that were for the company that I managed. And so that never went on the wayside while I was treating people kindly. You can do both. And I also have experienced even more explosive success because if you have the right person in the right job and you lift them up and show them that that they're valued, and you give them space to be themselves and to use their inherent gifts, it's truly amazing. You'll have a team of all superstars. And it's not just because you're there, cracking the whip. In fact, that has the opposite effect. No, lighting fires under people does not generally inspire them. That is so contrary, such a leadership contradiction, right? But when you give people value and let them fly, they do. And so my best teams have been lots of strong leaders, just knowing that I'm behind them and they take off. It's amazing to see. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out, that this doesn't come without accountability.
Right.
And,
of course.
And achieving the responsibilities that we have. However, it can be done in this way, and it can actually help you achieve your goals at a higher level. The data backs it, right?
Absolutely.
One thing I want to share with everyone listening is what I really got out of the book. The energy that I felt, and I read a lot. And when I finished reading this book, I felt a genuine, energetic desire to do better. I just did. It was this feeling that I had that it was this magic that you injected into the book that I got out of the book, where I was like really inspired to just go do a little bit better than what I'm doing today. And so I want to thank you for that. And I want to let everyone know that's listening, there's a lot of detailed ideas in the book that you can do as a leader and implement to start down this path, which is not being a leader that has contradictions, but one that follows this path of love and kindness and hitting your numbers and accountability and all the things. So if you're like, where do I even start? I think the really cool thing about it is we're going to drop it in the show notes is just grab a copy of the Leadership Contradiction and read a couple of Tracee's recommendations. I mean, I'll have you share one right now before we pull a card, but is there anyone in particular that you want to share from the book? I can share what inspired me, but I want you to maybe offer your wisdom for everyone listening. Yeah.
Okay. And there are so many, and I also reflected on how simple they are when I was calling them out to myself. One that my friends witnessed me practicing, I guess, if you will. And when I say friends, that's a business colleague, it's family, it's associates of any sort, is I carry in my briefcase and my purse and my pocket these little note cards called Thoughtfuls. And I randomly give them to people in the drive-through, at the gas station, as I'm getting on or off an airplane flight or checking in or out of a hotel for business reasons. I put them in greeting cards for clients that I send note cards to. And it's just a little cardboard 2x2 card that has a note of inspiration. Now, I don't know what it says on the inside. And I actually pulled one for myself this morning. And so sometimes I inspire myself with them, but it's just this little random gesture that you can do with others. Mm-hmm. And it reminds me all the time that every interaction matters, even if I don't know the people. And most often, I don't even know the person I'm giving it to, but I might just lift them up for the day. And I think it's our responsibility, all of us, to do that as human beings.
It's beautiful. Thank you. I'm curious what your message was this morning.
The outside says, "Yay, you." And so they all have different titles or kind of categories, if you will. And it just kind of fell out of a box. So I figured it must be mine for the day. Anyways, inside it says, "Shine with all you have," by Caitlin Irons.
Yes. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to pick a card for you and everyone listening, a message for today, for the week, for whenever you hear this. We talked about this a lot. Teamwork. We got teamwork.
Awesome.
Of course. Yeah. I now attract positive people into my life who serve my highest good. I now attract positive people into my life who serve my highest good.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Tracee, I want you to share your answer to this question for everyone, based off you authoring the Leadership Contradiction and everything we've talked about. Can you maybe sum up what does a supportive team feel like from your lens, from your leadership lens?
Wow. I love that. A supportive team, from my lens, and from many others, I'm certain, feels like we are all seen, we are all heard, and we are all valued. That not one person on the team, regardless of their status, the salary they get paid, the title on their business card, if they have one, not one person is more valuable than the other. That everybody contributes to the success of the whole. Doesn't mean that sometimes we don't need to work with some of those teammates. And sometimes people aren't the right person for the team. But it means that we make every effort together to bring the best of everyone to the center so that we can all have this tremendous success that not just grows the company, but grows the individual.
Thank you. That was incredible. Thank you. Tracee, if someone wants to connect with you, if they want to get a copy of the Leadership Contradiction, if they want to go deeper with your work, how can they connect with you?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amy. This has been so wonderful. To get a copy of the book or find out more information about that, just go to theleadershipcontradiction.com. And you'll get information on how to order the book and some more information about how I coach and guide teams. If you want to reach out to me directly, it's Tracee at buleadership.com. So Tracee, TRAYCEE at BEYOU leadership.com. And I'd love to hear from all of you.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. And we will put all of those links in the show notes, and they will live there. So yeah, reach out to Traycee, get a copy of the Leadership Contradiction. You will walk away from reading this book, just like I said, feeling inspired to be better and do better. And definitely you will feel uplifted. So thank you so much for being a guest on the Create Magic at Work podcast. And thank you for helping send some magic to all the listeners. Thanks, Traycee.
Thank you, Amy. It's a pleasure.
Do you have this feeling that you were called to do something very special and important in the world? Do you consciously tune into something higher than yourself for guidance and inspiration? Have you had mystical or spiritual experiences that have provided guidance in your everyday life and work? If you answered yes to those 3 questions, then you are a fit for a Create Magic at Work coaching program. If you're looking to explore new frontiers in your personal and professional life, I invite you to consider stepping into one of my coaching programs. I specialize in helping people step outside of their comfort zone and embrace the unknown. Whether you're looking to launch a new business venture, navigate a major life transition, or simply push yourself to reach new heights, I can help you achieve your goals. Please schedule a complimentary consultation with me at createmagicatwork.net. Click on Work with Amy, and I can't wait to see you. Sending magic to you. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming back every week to listen to a new episode of Create Magic at Work and really helping to support and advocate for healthy leaders, workplaces, and lives for all of us. If you want any information on how to connect with me, click on the link in the show notes. You'll get access to all of the social media links for Create Magic at Work. Stay following along for more amazing episodes where we help you improve productivity and profitability in the workplace and decrease stress. Sending magic to everyone, and see you next time.